Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. So today we are continuing along our adventures with Animated April with 3 other titles, all of which are sort of focused around relationships. Now, some of these relationships are familial, some are romantic, platonic. That's not really the point. What we're exploring is how those bonds affect the characters as individuals, how those bonds affect the society in which those characters live, and what it says about society's response to those particular bonds. As always, these 3 recommendations are available to you entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's get to the recs. Okay, so my first recommendation is available via Canopy, and it comes on the heels of a recommendation from last week, and that is 2012's Ernest and Celestine. This is from a large part of the same team that put together The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, and similar to that title, it works on a lot of levels as far as demographic goes. You can absolutely watch this with your kids, but while a lot of the story is certainly accessible and some of the main themes are, you will absolutely get a ton more out of it, I think, as an adult, especially when you delve into the deeper meaning behind some other aspects of the story. So in general, we are following a little mouse named Celestine as she goes out into the world. She herself is quite outside of the norm. She is an artist. She's a dreamer. She wants these big things to happen. And the mouse society as a whole is quite pragmatic. Pretty much mice become dentists. This is what your life goal is. So for her to want to be able to blossom as this artist is just not done. And she's sort of swept along with this societal norm, that push towards homogeneity that, becomes such a big pressure within a societal organization. So one of the things that she has to do is go out into the world and take these teeth, which sounds really crazy and creepy, but it works in the story, I promise you. In her quest to do this, she is almost eaten by a bear named Ernest. And some wacky things happen, and the 2 of these characters, this tiny, tiny mouse and this big, fearsome bear, end up developing a bond, and they become close for a lot of very, very accessible reasons. They're both sort of square pegs trying to fit into round holes. Neither one wants to fill the societal norm that they are being told that they should. And we see this bond develop, and it's really beautiful. And amidst this development, we are hearing about a lot of civil unrest within the mouse society and the bear society, how the lower classes are trying to rise up against the upper classes. And all of this culminates into a pretty interesting courtroom drama, for lack of a better descriptor. And I don't want to give anything away, but so much is uncovered during this courtroom drama about how these societies work and how, the powers that be at the top of both of these hierarchies are just so far removed from the realities of day-to-day life. And it's so relevant, this kind of storytelling and the topics, that as an adult, it's very hard to watch it and not be a little bit thrown by how much is coming out. I mean, it does not shy away from pretty heavy, dark topics. I mean, strife between socioeconomic classes is not generally a big theme in a lot of kids' movies, but it's definitely one of the big driving forces here, along with that whole concept of what is essentially authoritarian government pushing this homogeneous mentality on its populace, how this is one way and the only way in which to do something, how the power of the individual is significantly less important than the power of the whole, and the well-being of the whole. And it's just fascinating how they incorporate these themes. And I am very interested in the source material. So this is based on a series of children's books by a Belgian author named Gabrielle Vincent. I 100% intend to look into these books because I just thought that this film was amazing. And I wonder just how deeply we get to dive into it within a series of children's books. But yeah, if you were looking for something that, will certainly entertain you, whether you're a child or an adult, but will also really make you think about a lot of things, and you happen to like beautiful animation, because this is absolutely gorgeous. Like, the animation is absolutely stunning, and it's got this whole very sort of subdued sepia toned loveliness in the color scheme, and it just really works to pull everything all together. So if those are things that you're interested in, those are looks that you're interested in, make sure you check out Ernest and Celestine. It won a ton of awards for very good reason, and is one of this week's must-watch picks. Okay, my second recommendation is also available on Canopy, and that is 2016's stop-motion animation piece, Kubo and the Two Strings. So Kubo and the Two Strings leans really hard into Eastern culture, myth and legend, and storytelling style, but it is not an Eastern myth. It is not based on anything in particular. It just happens to lean hard into that kind of thematic. There are also some pretty strong leanings towards your classic Greek and Roman mythological quest stories too. So it's a blending of all those things. And at no point does it ever feel as if it's appropriating things in a poor manner. It's really very respectful. And it just results in a really fantastic adventure story. So in this fantasy piece, we are dealing with a young boy named Kubo. When we are introduced to him, is living a really difficult life where he has to every single day take care of his ailing mother by using this magical gift he has with origami and playing his shamisen. And by playing his shamisen, he can bring these origami characters essentially to life. And that is an important element to remember throughout this film, that he has these magical powers. As I mentioned, his mother is ailing, and, he's quite frustrated with the existence that he's living. She has given him certain rules that he absolutely cannot break. So, of course, being a young, independent-minded young man, he decides to break those rules. And when he does, the floodgates open and this quest really gets rolling. For the vast majority of this film, Kubo is attempting to find the armor of his heroic figure father. This armor is supposedly armor that cannot be defeated. It cannot be pierced. It's the impossible piece of weaponry. And as he's going along this quest, he meets multiple characters who become intrinsic on this journey, people he needs to keep with him, that he protects and that protect him. And these relationships that we see develop are really quite beautiful as they play out on screen. And all that while, we're also playing with the idea of, what is the story behind his actual mother, and what is the story behind his actual father? This father that he has never known, who has left behind this armor in pieces. Why don't these two people have a more prominent part of his life, aren't playing a more prominent role in his life? What was his mother sick from? And who are these people who are very clearly trying to make sure he does not get this armor, who are in fact trying to kill Kubo? And as we unravel these pieces, it's really kind of a fun mystery at the same time. who is really who, all of these mistaken identity bits and pieces. And I really love stories that do that. And that leans really hard into a pretty Eastern tradition. If you follow any East Asian myths and legends, this sort of journey is pretty common in classic storytelling, as it is in European as well. But this one definitely leans really hard into that Eastern tradition. I, in general, love stories that incorporate music as well. And it does it really quite seamlessly. Since we're introduced to this concept of him having this magical skill with his shamisen, we know that he can do all of these different things just by playing the music. So it becomes an intrinsic part of the story as well. And that's always a big plus for me, because when it's not a just disjointed sort of shoving of two concepts together, I think it's really, really beautiful. And I love the music in general with this, because you're dealing with this sort of traditional Japanese instruments, and incorporating that into the tale is really quite well done. The vocal cast is really amazing. Art Parkinson is the young man who plays Kubo, and I'm not familiar with his previous work, but he does an excellent job here. But then you've also got Charlize Theron. She plays Monkey, who he meets. Matthew McConaughey plays Matthew McConaughey, playing the Beetle, another character he meets. Ralph Fiennes has a role in this. Rooney Mara has a role in this. And I have mixed feelings a lot of times about stunt casting, but this particular cast is so good at this. Ralph Fiennes has one of those voices that if he's playing a villain, you feel it. You really feel it, whether it's just his voice or it's him actually on screen, and he plays this particular character perfectly. So if you are interested in Eastern storytelling, if you love music, if you just want a really good adventure quest story, make sure you check out Kubo and the Two Strings. It is phenomenally well done and just a really, really excellent film. So my final recommendation is also available on Canopy, and that is 2018's Sister. Sister is the shortest film that I'm recommending today. It is only 8 minutes long, but it is the one that probably left me feeling most affected, and for the longest period of time after watching. It is a Chinese film, so there are subtitles, but I think it is well worth it. It is, again, only 8 minutes long, and it is an incredible, incredible film. So in this beautifully animated short feature, we're following a man's narration of his childhood memories, and the narration is really, really subdued. It's very straightforward, and he's just talking about growing up with his very annoying little sister in China in the 1990s. If you're familiar with world history and Chinese history in particular, my statement has probably already raised some pretty significant questions, and I'm not going to go into those simply because the answers are kind of the crux of this particular piece of film. And as we realize what's actually going on, that's when you really start to think. This is one of those short films that was presented and nominated for pretty much every award. It was nominated for the Annies. It was shortlisted for the BAFTA Student Film Awards. It was also nominated for the Academy Award for Short Feature. It's well regarded for a reason. And I think this is such a good example of how animation can really make a statement, how it can transcend its own art form. We think of the most impactful films being these huge, brilliantly acted live action pieces, but the fact that an 8-minute short animated cartoon can still have me getting emotional just thinking about it like a week afterward, that says something about this art form. And I don't think a live action version of this would have been anywhere near as effective. Nowhere near. It raises a lot of questions about how personal choice becomes really important, how governmental control is always an issue. and how those two things have to find a balance. And it's just really, really interesting how, again, 8 minutes long and animated, it can make you ask those questions. I would not say that this is necessarily a political film, but I will say that it will make you think about a lot of things. So if you are interested in something that's short but really impactful, that says a lot within that very short time frame, if you were just interested in really brilliantly concise storytelling, because that's what this does, I strongly recommend checking out Sister. I know short film isn't really everybody's cup of tea, but I think this is a really good gateway because it is a phenomenal example of what this particular genre can do. And yeah, I really strongly recommend this one. It was really well done and a real surprise as I was going through our catalog. Okay, so that is it for this week's recommendations on animated features all about familial, platonic, and romantic bonds. If you have any recommendations for films that center around that theme, please, please, please put those in the comments. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future, definitely share those. Always looking for help with that. As always, thank you so much for giving me your time this week. I love putting these together. Diving into the catalog is always fun and always enlightening. And hopefully, I will see you next week. Bye-bye.